All right, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Prop Tech Genius Show. And today's genius is Brett Clark. Hey, Brett, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you today?
I'm good. It's been, I don't know how long has it been? We met up at Summer Moon and had a cool conversation. When was that? Like,
Yeah, that was like a week or so after South by, so
oh, yeah. Yeah.
about a month.
We're all like hungover from South by. For sure. Oh, that's so cool. Well, today's episode is going to be so much fun because we're going to talk about Brett's new deal, new technology, that has such cool applications for just I'm not going to let you, I'm going to let you explain it because it's like super cool. Just the data you can do and all the things you can grab from people just wandering around. So it's awesome sauce. So I'm going to let you explain it. So today we're going to talk about her new technology, her journey, all these other great things. It's always cool to have another female founder in the house. Woo woo, girl power. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. So Brett, I will let you take it away, girlfriend.
Okay, great. So, I'm one of the partners at Constellation Growth Partners, and so we are an investment product. We are very niche. We put marketing intelligence devices on top of rooftops, and those gather data from cars, people, pretty much any Bluetooth device passing below. All of the data is non-personally identifiable. We don't collect anything personally identifiable for privacy reasons. And, heaven forbid we get hacked. We do have multiple levels of encryption, but those hackers are smart.
Yeah.
so, um, so we keep all of that. Um, we make a point of not collecting anything personally identifiable for a variety of reasons, but we can triangulate all of that information so we have a good idea about the gender of the person who came by, the education level, how many kids they have, where they might be going, where other places in town they might be going. So that way we can put marketing in front of them that would be what they want to see. We're not the only groups doing this. I mean, we've all had those um, social media where we compliment someone's shoes and they tell us what brand they are, and the next day we start getting ads on our
Right.
phones.
Right.
So we know this is out there. We know people are collecting this data, and so but we are trying to do this in a responsible way, and it would be more of a public marketing rather than personalized to your phone marketing, because I feel like that feels a little bit more intrusive. But if
Mhm.
you know what people are in certain parts of town, we can put ads that will get in front of them where they are.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's all about influencing buying decisions these days, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, yeah, like you like get over it. Alexa is always listening. Google's always listening. Everybody's listening. And, I think everybody gets value out of Alexa. They didn't all throw it out of their houses when they heard she was listening. I mean,
I have to say, I never got an Alexa because it freaks me out. But I still do have my iPhone, and let's be honest,
yeah.
it's listening too.
Yeah, everybody's
you
listening,
know.
in an
So
attempt to, it's convenient for you because they're bringing what they're convenient. The funniest thing ever is when like someone visits my house and the ads that show up on my TV because they happen to be visiting my house, I roll. I'm just like going, I don't own that. Why am I getting like, and so it's like, oh, you are here. You've been looking for that. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
It's like so
yeah,
funny. Cracks me up.
yeah.
That's hilarious. So that's
Yeah,
cool. So let's talk about your tech. So you stick it up on a roof
yeah,
and you capture the cool thing about yours is you're capturing people in cars, right? In
yep,
your yeah, that's so awesome. So it is not like they have to be walking around to capture it. They're going pretty fast or ish, fast-ish, right?
yeah. It takes about 3 seconds to capture a device in a car. So as long as we have a wide enough angle from that roof, no trees or anything like that in the way, then we can get that 3 seconds. And actually, if we put it somewhere near a stoplight or something like that, or if there's a traffic jam, we might pick up more than one device in a car. So, you're in the car with your friends. And so, that way we have an idea. Or kids, it's really interesting to see how many devices we have a shopping center in Missouri that they're picking up on average 7 devices per car. We don't
Wow.
even know how that's happening. That seems really high, but at the same time, it's a shopping center. There are a couple of children's activities there, so we're guessing that it's carpool, you know. And if everybody has a smartwatch, a smartphone, and then you've got your smart car, that adds up pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah, no, for
So
sure. I mean, they have that, they have their phone, they have their iPad, they have their watch, they have like, you know, this, that, and the other. And if they brought their VR headset with them, they got there's another device. I mean, like how many things are connected to the internet? Like it's insane in the membrane. Like that is crazy town. If they brought their fridge, it's connected to the internet too. So, you know, you never know.
Yep. Um, so
Funny.
yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, that one is a little bit of an anomaly, but we do expect, I mean, as everybody gets more and more devices, that we'll pick up more devices per car. And I mean that's all useful because, you know, then we get an idea, where are you taking your iPad? Where are or
Yeah.
where not you, but where are people taking their iPads? So what would be a useful place to have connectivity there? There are people taking, I mean, do people not wear their smartwatches if they're not at the gym, or those new rings that they have that
Mm.
are
Yeah,
smart?
I know.
Um,
Those weird things. Like
yeah,
there's a sleep ring, there's an exercise ring, I mean, that's a device too. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all connected to Bluetooth. So, but yeah, and it all can help with making decisions. Eventually, we're hoping to work more closely with city planners,
Mhm.
so that way they can make intelligent choices about where to put roadways, where to put stoplights. You know, where are the problems? As a former real estate developer myself, you
Mhm.
know, I look at the data perhaps a little bit differently.
Right.
Um, but to me, the data is important to make sure that we're being thoughtful about our roads, being thoughtful about public transportation.
Right.
I mean, there are some cities out there that I could go on a whole rant about public transportation, but I won't. But there are some cities out there that boast all these miles of public transportation, but they don't really get used because they didn't put them where people wanted to go.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter how great your roads are, how great your public transportation is, if it's not where people want to go. So our data is just another way to help cities be thoughtful in that planning, consider, you know, the best places to put new infrastructure.
Right.
Um, and with the city growing as fast as Austin, I mean, it's slowed down a little bit now, but when I first moved here 10 years ago, it was I mean, we were having brownouts sometimes
I
because the
know.
infrastructure just couldn't handle it.
I know.
So,
I know.
I mean, the data can help plan ahead.
Yeah,
So it's another just another way to make our cities smarter, to improve quality of life for everybody.
for sure. I think you know, that really before the data revolution, it was no joke. It was like we build it and they'll come, right? It was no big deal. We're gonna stick this out in the middle of the boonies and it'll fill up, you know, especially
Yeah,
around Austin, right? It was
yeah.
like it didn't matter where we were sticking it. Well, you know, doubt that that's still the case. I think I have a very contrarian view. Yes, we have a housing shortage and that's great and all, but some of the developers need to be a little more thoughtful around, okay, you're creating a medical desert, a food desert, right? Because you're sticking this out in the middle of nowhere and there's no services around, right? So you need to be really good about working with the cities and how are they going to support it from an EMS standpoint? How are they going to support it from a water and not just utilities, but you know, you don't want to make a who wants to make a 25-minute ambulance ride when you're dying? Nobody, you know, I
Yeah,
mean, like, you know,
or fire services, you know, I mean, every second's count, every
I
second
know,
counts in
I know.
situations like that. So yeah, I think being thoughtful about how we're putting things together um, is really important for all cities.
Yeah.
And public transportation, I mean, we see the homeless problems that we have,
Mhm.
um, but if people could live a little bit further out, they might be able to afford it if they could get there, if they didn't have to have a car, if there were other modes of transportation.
For sure.
I mean, that's another situation that I think every city could benefit from.
Yeah, no, no, sure.
Um,
I mean, I know everybody's kind of doing cartwheels about the bullet train going from Houston to Dallas. I mean, and I think it's finally kind of coming around where, I mean, they've been talking about this thing for, I don't know, at least 8, 9 years or something. And
I think I remember hearing about it when I moved here in 2014. So
yeah, yeah. And they even started construction on the train station in Houston. Like they took the old Post Oak Mall or whatever it was over to off of 290 and they were starting to build the train station, like revamp it because they're like, it's coming, it's coming. And then there'd be this hurdle and that hurdle. Obviously everybody hates eminent domain, but like I get it. I get it. But you know, if they're paying you a fair price, then it should be good, right? Hopefully.
right. Well, and I think eminent domain is, as long as it's done thoughtfully,
Hmm.
you know, we have to think a little bit about the greater good.
Yeah.
Pay someone a fair price, absolutely. Don't make their business become impossible because of it. But at the end of the day, an inconvenience that serves a large group of people, an inconvenience for one person, especially if they're getting paid
Pretty
fair
well.
market value,
Yeah.
um, or more, often more. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, then we do have to think about the greater good. And but I mean, I think having something a bullet train connecting cities in Texas. I also think something local.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having local transportation. I mean, we have drinking and driving problems. I've always been astonished that the police don't sit right outside the bars when they close. I'm like, why? That just seems like fish in a barrel. But but give people other options. I mean,
Yeah.
Uber's great, but give people, I mean, I lived in New York City for also about 10 years,
Mhm.
and I loved the train. You know, I never had to think about driving. I never had to think about parking.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and now with Austin passing they
Reduction.
abolished parking requirements
Yeah.
in downtown, which is, I mean, in many ways it's great, but it's also putting the cart a little bit before the horse. We have to have, if we don't have another way for people to get there, we're creating a new problem.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of ways that data can help with that as well. I do think, I mean, a lot of cities actually, shockingly, going back to the drinking and driving thing, a lot of cities have larger parking requirements for bars than they do for offices. And it's like,
If
and it's
they
like,
say
well,
just stay there overnight, it's really like car storage because you know
yeah.
they get drunk and they don't want to drive home. So yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's how they're using it, then good for them.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy with that. Um, but yeah, so I think being really thoughtful as new laws come in with every city, not just, I mean, obviously I can speak more about Austin and Dallas, having worked in those cities,
Yeah.
um, but I think it will be very interesting and telling as as new buildings are built in downtown Austin once this new parking, um, well,
Mhm.
lack of requirement
Yeah.
goes into effect. It'll be really interesting to see how that affects and how the city works with that.
I think it's leaving it up to the developer, right? And it's really just democratizing that code, right? And so it's like the developer's going to build parking because they got to lease their stuff, right? So
That's
it's
true.
not like they're not going to build parking and all the parking lots are gone. I
Mhm.
think they're just going to try to make is as best of a decision as they can instead of leaving that decision up to some code planner based off of old code from 12 years ago, right? And so
That's true.
I think that's what it's going to do. But but it is interesting. I think and some developers were like, well, hell, I'm not going to provide any parking at all, and they got to go to the garage down the street, and let's see how that works, right? And there'll be some brave ones that do that.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and I spoke to some brokers in Dallas a few years ago, and I remember them saying some of those older legacy buildings, they had a harder time leasing them, and it wasn't that the buildings hadn't been redone. They were very nice. They had great amenities. It was the parking that was
yeah,
often the situation that meant um, that getting those buildings leased up, just it became a little bit more complicated.
for sure.
Um,
It's a mobility thing, right? So if you're on near a train line or you're on near a bus line, it becomes a boon to you, right? So then that makes it a whole lot easier. I would, you know, yes, I love New York. I love the subway. I wish Austin had a subway. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know why Toronto is blowing up? Because they have that subway infrastructure and it goes all across the city of Toronto. Right now, there's like 200 cranes. I was talking to somebody who lives in Toronto. There's 200 cranes in the city of Toronto. They are building like gangbusters up there. But they have the infrastructure, they have the subway, and it's
Yep.
clean and it's nice and you can get anywhere you want to go and it's no big deal. Like
Yep.
it's great.
I,
And it's
I went to a wedding in Toronto 2 years ago, and yeah, hopped off the airport, or hopped off the train, or hopped off the airplane, got on a train, got to my hotel, was able to walk from the hotel to the
yeah.
couple's to the rehearsal dinner. I mean, it was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, I Toronto's a really interesting case study in that. Just because you wouldn't think it would be as much of a multimodal city as it is,
Mhm.
given the weather, but they've worked around it. I mean, actually, I think Toronto's trains run better than New York,
Yeah.
even though they have more weather issues.
Yeah, I know.
um,
A little
so
cold there.
it's like it's like how did that happen? But it does, and and it was super clean. I felt completely safe.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well lit, super clean.
yeah,
Like, you know, and then they have the guards there that, you know, make sure you're good. And but yeah, no, it was fabulous. I loved it. And then you know, I mean, I think there's like environmental issues with building a subway now in Austin. I would love to have done that, but you know, you never know. No, I said, what do you think the boring company is for? Like, come on, build us a subway, Elon. Like, seriously, come on.
yeah, yeah. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
I
But yeah, I
know.
know there are a lot of underground caves in Austin.
Mhm. I
All it takes is one
know.
salamander that no one's seen in 25
I
years
know, I know,
to
exactly.
shut it down.
That little
But
salamander is like, come on, the vibrations are giving me willies, like knock
yeah.
it off. But no, I know. I know there, and we do have a lot of aquifers, and I don't think a subway would work here, but some sort of public transportation, right? Or, you know, I mean, like create an L, but that's really noisy. The Chicago L is really noisy. So we have to
Oh yeah,
we
that
don't
is
want to
pretty
do
noisy.
noise pollution. That's why I'm like hoping for a subway. But anyway, I
Yeah.
digress. No one listens to me anyway, Brett. No one listens to me. Like, you know, just saying. No one at the say Kirk Watson is not dialing into this to listen. Go make me think.
Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet. Not yet. Exactly. Not yet. That's very cool. So let's talk about, we were talking a little bit about earlier about
Oh,
the applications that your data can do.
so yeah. And then as far as our setup with our investors, so each device is fairly expensive. So we raise a special purpose vehicle for each location. So what we do is we perform traffic studies. A lot of stuff is already available online. So we put together a traffic study for any given potential location. And then once we have that kind of dialed in, once we have a lease in there, then we go to our investors and we say, okay, this is based on the traffic. This is how much we think it will make. And if it's, for example, a highway, we know that maybe we're not going to catch every device. There might be a semi truck that comes by and blocks us from the other side of the road for, you
Yeah.
know, a few cars and stuff like that. So if it's a highway, we multiply it by like a 0.7 multiple for the anticipated traffic. If it's an intersection, then we know that we might get more than one device per car because the cars are sitting there a little bit longer. We have a little bit more time to gather because each device takes about 3 seconds, but we can only capture like one device at a time.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
the technology is still fairly new. So, it's improving every day, but we want to give our investors today's projections,
Oh yeah.
not what we hope it's going to be in 5 years. As fiduciaries, that's important. So at a stoplight, we might be able to say, actually, we think we might be able to get 2 devices per car, and we hope that we get 3 and give them more money, but
Yeah.
or 5 or 7, but 2 is a pretty solid number there. I mean, the cars are going to be at a stoplight a little bit longer. They're going to be moving a little bit slower. And so on average, we would say we think we would get 2 devices per car at a stoplight. So we put together those numbers and we put together an investment package for our investors. And that way they're making an educated decision.
Right.
When they come in as an investor. A friend of mine, actually, she used the analogy, for building oil wells. We have our best geologists on it,
Yeah.
but we can't guarantee it. I mean, we can't guarantee how many cars are going to go by. But we
Yeah.
have our best geologists on it. We're doing a lot of due diligence and research and making sure that we do, in fact, that we present conservative but solid numbers.
Yeah.
Um, and
But that data is super valuable. Y'all should sell
yeah,
that stuff, I'm sure.
um,
Yeah.
well, yes, well, and so our device provider is always working on bringing on new data purchasers, and
Mhm.
that's another thing. We hope that a new one comes on, and again, we're giving more money back to our investors than we thought,
Right.
because we
Right.
do, at the end of the day, it's a percentage.
Right.
So if the device ends up outperforming significantly, it's a win for them.
Yeah.
If we bring in a new data purchaser, every time we bring in a new data purchaser, I mean, those numbers go up.
Mhm.
um so so we're constantly looking, and even though we're not putting together those contracts ourselves, we are always on the lookout. Oh, yeah, we would love to connect you. Because I mean, a rising tide raises all ships at the end of
Oh,
the day.
it
So
does.
if
It
we
does.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, so if we can connect it, if we can connect them with the right people, and they get the data, our devices bring in more money, everybody's devices bring in more money,
Oh, yeah.
then it's a win-win for everybody. So
Yeah, no, no. I mean, I think it's awesome. And then, so you have a unique model because you're basically every location, you get an investor for every location, which is different than like you just getting an investor for your company and going and deploying out in locations. So that's cool because then you can get somebody who wants to invest in a really cool tech company and they don't have a lot of money and they like, they want to just put like 100 grand in or 50 grand in and so they can invest in your company in a specific location, which is kind of unique for sure.
yes.
Unique
Well, and
model.
we've also found a lot of investors, they understand a certain city. And
Right.
so they feel they have a level of comfort with that city.
Yeah.
Whereas, maybe, I mean, and we've made the strategic decision to stay out of certain states. Currently, this technology is legal in all 50 states, but we know that there are certain states that are more litigious than others. There are more inclined to pass laws that might make this illegal in the future. So we have what we call our naughty nice list. And um so we've made that decision, and we've said, okay, we'll leave that to other people who want
Yeah.
to take that risk. And for us, that risk, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
um Especially as a small company, even a frivolous lawsuit has to be defended.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'd rather avoid as many of those as possible. And but we've learned a ton about data privacy laws.
Oh, yeah. I bet you have. I bet you
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
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 We spent about 6 months of due diligence just understanding the technology, because I mean,
Yeah.
we built this investment product around the technology that someone else created.
Mhm.
But we, as having an investment background, is really important to really understand that. My business partner has more of a marketing background, and so, which has been really cool, as far as working together. Her strengths are my weaknesses, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun when you get to work with someone like that.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
and you really, yeah. And I mean, some of the things that she does, I'm like, I would rather chew off my arm. That sounds absolutely awful. But,
Yeah.
at the same time, she doesn't want to build a financial model. She
No.
doesn't, she doesn't want to do that. Um,
You
and
steer your strength. That's great.
yeah,
Like you stay your
yeah,
lane. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So
It's
it's
very,
been a lot
very,
of fun
yeah.
to work in that. And then we've also, I mean, as we've gotten to know some of our investors, I mean, a lot of our investors are in the real estate realm. They tend to kind of get it
Mhm.
a little bit faster. Some are also in the prop tech realm.
Mhm.
Um, so and the data. So I mean, getting kind of in that convergence. And so we've learned a lot from these investors that we've brought on. And I mean, we love getting to know them, because I mean, they bring new things to our
Oh, yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So yeah.
That's like one of the best things about the U.S. Prop Tech Council is that I get to talk to like things you would have never thought of. I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. Oh, that's fabulous. And you just have these conversations with people, and I talk to a lot of people. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally still in that. I mean, like, it's really, really good. Yeah. And I think on the prop tech side, it really is, especially if you're a startup, real estate investors get you. Like you don't have to educate them. You don't have to
Yeah.
spend time talking about what is prop tech, you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like they get it. And so that's the natural fit for
Yeah.
especially early stage doing stuff like what you're doing is super cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. No, 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 it's awesome. So talk about like we were talking about 7-Eleven earlier and the really cool way that your data can be used. I like for our listeners to kind of hear that too. That's
Okay. So yeah, so that's a new technology that's just starting to get rolled out, but some of the devices will actually in stores that have a lot of different products, they can put a screen in the store,
Mhm.
and then the screen could advertise in real time. So someone walks in, they're likely to buy one brand. Maybe that brand's competitor puts up an ad and says, "Hey, 2 for 1 today," and stuff like that. And then those brands can then get that data on the back end and say, okay, what inspired someone? Is this person just going to be a Coke drinker for life, or might they go to Pepsi if the deal is good enough? Now, being from Atlanta originally, probably not for me. but there are people that are like, oh, actually,
Actually, in this
I could,
inflationary environment,
yeah,
okay, go to
yeah,
soda. Like it's great.
yeah,
Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah.
Right?
So yeah, I'm just thirsty,
I know.
So yeah, so I think that could be really cool and interesting to see, and analyzing the data later.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it'll help people save money in real time, but I think the analysis of that data later by those larger companies, seeing what worked, what didn't, will be really fascinating. I mean, that data is already collected in a lot of grocery stores based on, maybe they have a display at the end of the aisle, but
Mhm.
this will be in real time. It'll be,
Yes. Yes.
um,
Super, super cool. Like that is so super cool. I am telling you. Yeah, and you should be at ICSC this year. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so actually, I met my business partner about 3 weeks before ICSC last year,
Yeah.
and we said we were gonna go, and we didn't. We hadn't started this company yet. we we just met at a conference and started talking, and we were both like, neither of us have ever been to ICSC, and I've actually never been to Vegas. So
Oh,
ever.
yeah,
So we were like, we should go next year. And now that you mention it, I'm like, oh, that's coming up. Maybe
it
we
is
actually should
May
go.
the 20th. And we're hosting a happy hour. So you should go just because you're going to get free drinks. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really
it's
cool.
it's really cool. Yeah, and that's another really cool application. We've also, a few chains like fast food chains and stuff like that have started reaching out. They've heard about it. They think it's
Yeah.
interesting, and they may or may not choose to do the in-store advertising, but at the same time, it is useful for them to know what kind of people are passing by,
Yes.
having different ads and having different specials, and even just having different products in different areas. Whatever sells better in that area is, of
Right.
course, what they want to
Yeah.
have.
And it helps. So it's not so sales data is a lagging indicator, right? You get this after you make the sale, you're creating your whatever. So you're trying, it's really always lagging, right? So, but if you can predict what people are going to want based on what's around you at the time and different preferences change all the time. So
Yes.
as you can use your sales data, of course, obviously you always use your sales data. But then you can use the other data to, oh, well, maybe we need to change our menu change because people are looking at whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just super, super cool, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, with the obesity epidemic, I think
Yeah.
fast food is becoming less desirable to some people. And, as people make more conscious health health choices. And I mean, we have so many food deserts. We talked about that earlier. Food
Fabulous.
deserts all over the place. And, how can we make people, or give people the option, the healthy option, um, so that way they're not just confined to fast food.
Right.
Or I mean, they could still have fast food, but they can have a healthy option at that
Yeah.
fast food location. So I mean, it's all about you know
It's all about
predicting.
catering to what people want, and and then not having to settle, right? If you can just do that just through data, I mean, I think it's fabulous, right? Yes, nobody wants to listen to you look at your web search histories, and yes, if you're looking at something you shouldn't be looking up,
Yeah.
okay, you're not going to go. But if you're looking up, I need to lose weight, and and I'm like, and if they see a lot of those people picking that, then that fast food restaurant needs to think, oh, we need to have healthier options because
Yeah.
there's people around trying to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
right?
And then they can, or even if they already have
Hmm.
it, they can promote it a little bit more. You can
Yeah,
put that sign out front that says, "Hey, we have this really great salad. It's really good, and it's only $3.99 or
yeah,
whatever."
yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, it drives business. It's really cool, and it's based off of what people are asking for. It's awesome. Yeah, no, no,
yeah.
yeah, yes. All of this is enabled, y'all, because we're listening to you, and but it's okay. We're not gonna, we're not listening to everything you're doing, watching everything
Yeah.
you.
Well, I mean, someone is, but it's not us.
That's true. It's called the NSA, so don't say bomb, terrorist,
Yeah.
jihad, and then you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Don't research on Google how to make a pipe bomb, and then you're fine. Like, just
yeah.
do it. Like, and
Yeah.
you're, and I
Um,
say that because my son was in combat intelligence. I'm scrolling. This is what
oh,
yeah. My son was in combat intelligence in the army. And so he
okay.
had access to a ton of tools, and that's how he targeted people. No joke, was by they give themselves away. He's like, Mom, everybody gives themselves away. They're like looking for information on this, that, or the other, and we can find them. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's creepy, but I'm so glad you can find the
Yeah.
terrorists. That's so helpful. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's one of those things that I think about, it's a balance,
Mhm.
do I love the idea that someone's always listening or watching and knows where you are? No, but, if a bridge collapses
Yeah.
and I happen to be on that phone or on that bridge, but my phone pinged on one side, but not the other, then they know to look for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's as long as the data is being used responsibly,
Yeah.
and for the greater good.
Mhm.
I mean, granted, marketing, but I mean, if it can get you what you want,
Right.
that's better. If it gets you a bunch of things that you don't need,
Yeah. Yeah. It's still your
I,
choice. You have a choice at the end of the day. We're not
yeah,
forcing you to buy.
that's true.
So what do you think about the whole Senate spying bill and talk about data privacy? You want to open that can of worms? And yeah, they just passed. Or did they pass it? I can't remember where it's at. But the Senate
Um,
passed a spying bill that so people
um, that
the
was like last week. Was
yeah.
that
Yeah,
week?
that was last week.
Um, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't have a super educated answer on that. But tell me a little bit about what it was. Just to
It allows them, and they don't have to get a warrant to go spy
Oh,
on
yeah.
you. They can spy on you,
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
Generally, I'm summing it up, and there's probably more
Yeah.
nuances, and I didn't read the whole thing either. But I
Yeah.
find it funny that they want to ban TikTok, and then they pass the spying bill. That was my whole thing. I was just like, okay,
The
so as
timing
long as
is,
the U.S. government is spying on us, we're good. But we don't want China spying on us. Like, I'm
but at
like,
the same time, I do kind of understand that,
I
I
do.
mean, we're trying to protect ourselves. We don't know what China's doing with that information.
Well,
Um,
okay, but we don't know what the U.S. government is doing with that
well,
information.
that's true too. That's true too.
Yeah,
I
but
do think I think having loosened restrictions on certain warrants. I mean, but yeah, I mean, we don't because I mean, I think there's always a checks and balances.
yeah,
And everything like this ends up, it's like a pendulum. It's like we get way too lax, and then people are like, oh my gosh, we need to start paying attention. And then we get way too extreme and
yeah,
too tight
yeah,
with the laws. And so, I think it's all about finding that equilibrium in the middle. And so, you know, I think it depends on what they're gathering. If they find someone and it enables them to stop the next 9/11,
I'm good.
I'm willing to give up a little bit of privacy for that.
Right.
But if they're gonna create the next Handmaid's Tale, like, okay, let's slow down. I don't want that. You don't need to know all of my stuff so that you can deactivate my credit cards and hold me hostage. um, so it's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to, because once you go down that slippery slope, you've got the good actors and the bad actors.
Right.
And so yeah, I think with regulation, I mean, hopefully there is some sort of regulation, and perhaps this can create some new jobs. The regulatory bodies could create some new jobs.
Yeah.
Because actually, kind of going on along the lines of regulatory, one of the reasons we chose not to create a fund, one of the reasons we chose to do SPVs for every specific location, was the regulatory oversight for a fund is so strong
Yes, I know.
that we would actually have to hire 4 or 5 people
Mhm.
just to keep in compliance.
Yeah.
And as a small company, I mean, right now it's my business partner, me, and then we have a business development guy and an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
So that's 4 people.
Yeah.
And we're working a lot.
Yeah.
So I just don't, so keeping up with the regulatory requirements for a fund would have meant that we would have reduced the return to our investors.
Right.
Um, and because we would have had to hire those additional people. And perhaps one day we will. I mean, once we've gotten to the point where we're making enough money that makes sense, and then we can talk to our future investors, about why
Yeah.
we've made that decision. But at the end of the day, I mean, there do need to be compliance levels, and I mean, we talk to our attorneys on a regular basis about how do we make sure that we are in compliance
Yeah.
with everything. But with the fund, there's a lot more stuff that you have to send in. There's paperwork that you have to send in all the time. And so, it made more sense for us to go with the area that has a little bit less regulatory requirements. I was an investment advisor, so I know how to do all that stuff, and I know how time consuming it is.
Oh yeah, no, no, for sure. I
So,
get you. I was in private real estate, private equity forever. I totally
yeah,
understand what you're saying. Yeah, not
yeah,
everybody else understands, but no, I get it. I mean, it's like you go from just raising equity to raising equity on crack, and it just the complexity of what you have to, and it depending on how you set. I mean, like if you're a Reg A plus fund, or if you're a 506B or 506C fund, they all have their different the things that you have to manage. And no, I'm totally with you, girlfriend. Like, yeah, no, it is, and it does add a lot of, and it's amazing how quickly you will scale in staff needs from going from an SPV to a definitely to a
yeah.
fund. So God bless you. Like you're doing, that's awesome.
Yeah,
But I know you might
yeah,
eventually want to get there, but then you'll have plenty of, money coming in, and so you'll be fine.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for the time being, we're just gonna have a million K1s.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. You're gonna keep your CPA really busy. He's gonna be
yeah,
like,
yeah,
damn.
yeah.
Brett."
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
gonna be like, well, I love you and hate you at the same time, certain parts of the
exactly. I know. Sure. Yeah. Eventually there'll be some technology that'll solve that problem too. Right.
year.
At
Yeah,
some point, it'll all be great.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
But
No.
I do think, I mean, as far as the regulatory oversight for any sort of spy bill, I think that, I mean, we keep worrying about AI taking our jobs. Well, that could be a great, I mean, you have to have a person looking at certain things.
Yeah.
So that could be a great way to create new jobs,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
having some
Yeah.
of that oversight.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's my next question. So are you like, I mean, eventually you're going to have this very unique data set that you're like collecting or over time or whatever. And yeah, that's an easy AI thing. That's an easy play for AI. I mean, AI loves you. Right now we're only using AI to scrape what's on the internet, right? But we can use the AI with unique, like my company, we have a unique data set around building data, right? So using AI in that way is super powerful. You're going to have a unique data set too. And so using AI that way too is pretty super cool. Like for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And it's really cool because I think, I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we're going to be able to do. I mean, we haven't even thought of, I'm a member of a women's group in real estate. We were all in a leadership group, a real estate leadership group in Dallas a couple of years ago. And now we just have like quarterly lunches and we just talk about our careers and our career trajectories. And we were talking a few months ago and we were saying one of the women was, you know, a little bit less satisfied with her job than she had been in the past. And she was trying to kind of decide, she was like, you know, I have a young daughter. So it's great, you know, that I know how to do my job like the back of my hand, but at the same time, I kind of want a challenge. She's
Yeah.
like, so how do I balance that? We were like, you know, the next job that you might never have even heard that it was an option yet. You
Right.
know, like don't stress about it too much. I mean, we'll all keep our ears and eyes open for you and and support you however you need. But, you know, just keep your ears, you know, and keep kind of putting those feelers out there and then maybe, I mean, a year and a half ago, I'd never heard anything about these rooftop devices,
I
you
know,
know?
right?
And
Amazing.
then,
Right.
you know, I happened to meet my business partner. She mentioned like a little snippet, and I went down the real estate road and was like, oh, well, if you structure the leases like this and you structure an SPV like this, and she was like, okay, we have to keep talking,
Yeah.
you know? And so, I mean, but I'd never heard of anything along those lines. It's just that I had the background in the real estate to understand and finance and to understand how to put that together in the way that she envisioned. And then she had the marketing and the connections with the device manufacturers. Kind of figure it out. And so yeah, we figured it out together. But yeah, I mean, a year and a half ago, if you'd told me that this is what I was going to be doing, I would have been like, what?
Right.
Data? What?
I don't know, Louis. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know. It's crazy. And it's crazy how fast it's moving. Like this whole prop tech, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I started the US Prop Tech Council was because we need to get together. This industry is moving so fast and we're way too fragmented. And we need to like, you know, if we have a good, you have to, if you can take the opportunity at the moment that we're in to kind of build connection and be really strategic about it, we can do cool things, right? You know, you can we can find you a partner with this person or that person, but I can learn from you and you can learn from us and we can learn both can learn from some other startup that's doing really cool things and just build a better mousetrap, right? I mean, but if we're all off doing our separate things, then it's like, you know, yes, it might have been cool, but it could have been cooler had we been talking, right? You know.
Yeah. Well, and I was talking to someone who they build apartment buildings.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the problems that they have is theft,
Yeah.
theft of their supplies and stuff like that. And so I was trying to figure out, and we haven't figured it out yet, but if there's a way, like our devices, we really do want to put in high traffic areas,
Mhm.
but is there a way to get that component of our device that's there because that way they have cameras, but a lot of times at night when the thefts happen, the cameras don't pick up as much.
Right.
um so if they were able to pick up both the camera and the device and any sort of cell phone device that was nearby, that would be a little bit better at holding up in court. That could help deter a lot of that
Yeah, yeah,
device theft.
yeah.
So, you know, it's another way to use some of the similar data.
Yeah.
There was a situation where actually a convenience store was robbed, and it wasn't our personal one, but it was a similar device, and that's how they caught they robbed two people. They robbed the same convenience store 2 days in a row, and they were able to figure out who it was because they had their cell phones on them. And of course, the security cameras didn't at the store weren't that good. And so
Yeah,
they were all grainy and, you know, but they had their faces covered and stuff like that.
right.
But they had their cell phones on them and they were like, oh, these are the same cell phones as yesterday. And then they were able to go to the cell phone company and figure out who it was. And that's how they were able to catch
That's
them.
awesome.
So I mean, we could use the same a similar technology to help with, building supply theft. I mean, people think it's a victimless crime, but at the end of the day, that makes the costs go up for everybody. I mean, the same with, I was at Home Depot the other day, and the woman said someone basically ran out with a shopping cart full of stuff. She had to call the security. She wasn't allowed to chase them. And she was like, that's the third time that guy's come in today and done that. And it makes the prices go up for the rest of them. It makes the
Yeah.
prices go up for everybody.
Yeah.
And so same with stealing building supplies and the copper and stuff like that. So it's in all of our best interest to kind of do what we can to deter that, make it more difficult.
Yeah.
Because the cost of rent is they're gonna put that into the cost of rent. They're not just gonna eat that loss.
No,
So,
no, I know.
um,
Sure.
but that's another reason that we've actually had a lot of luck with malls. Malls have been enthusiastic about putting our devices nearby because we have some security cameras on them on the newer versions,
Mhm.
and they feel like it's just an added security measure. And so any more eyes that they can get, or even if it just appears that they're eyes,
Yeah.
um, because most of it they're not connected into that feed. But of course, if they have a problem, we will share it.
Yeah.
And so, any more ways to deter theft, to deter other sorts of crimes, um, these can help. So,
Cool. Yeah, no, no, super cool. I mean, I think eventually there's now I talk with prop tech founders all the time. So there's a lot of stuff around occupancy and managing occupancy in spaces and tracking like people, not their personal people. I mean, you can do that too, but where you can you can opt in and do facial recognition, and they can use facial recognition as your key to get into spaces. So like based off of like access control, like in a club or like a gym, they'll have facial recognition or recognize you and go, oh, you can get into this, but you can't get into that. And so you don't have to
wow.
have fobs or keys anymore. You don't have to have any of that. And it automatic updates based off your subscription. So they're very busy with like gyms and clubs and resorts. Like they're
So
really cool about that.
yeah, when I was in undergrad, I did an internship in Barcelona,
Mhm.
and I worked for a magazine, and there was a nightclub there that was they would put something under your skin. This was pre to facial recognition. They would put, and they said it was like the size of a rice. And it was a magazine, so I was covering the story. I wasn't. um, but yeah, they said it was like the size of a grain of rice, and they would implant it in your arm, and you could put your money on it. So you could go to the club, and they could scan your arm, and you didn't have to have your wallet or anything with you.
Gross.
Um,
Like just get us a wristband, or oh my God, I guess wristbands can be stolen, right? So
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So,
Wow.
I mean, this was 2004. So, it was, yeah. But yeah, I think it was a little bit of a marketing kind of, like, oh, this crazy thing. But they also said that if you ended up like causing a problem in the club, if you walked in, you would go get an alarm would set off.
Oh my God.
So you had to be on your best behavior once you had that thing in your arm.
Oh my, oh, holy,
So
that is crazy town. That is crazy
yeah.
town. Talk about
So
a tracking device like we do for our
yeah.
dogs. I mean, like,
But people chose to put them in there.
okay then. All righty then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder, because that's so 2004, that would be 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
wonder if anybody still has those. I don't even remember the
That
name of
would
the
be
club.
so weird. Like, do you still have the chip? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure clubs don't usually last 20 years. I mean, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I heard the other day that you remember those Amazon stores where you could kind of just walk out and then that was all the new technology. Well, I didn't realize this, but that was a total farce. Like what they did was they used cameras and then they would watch for the people and then they had like people in the background doing it manually. Like it wasn't really true that you could just walk out of the store and it would charge you, right? And it was like
Yeah.
this big, huge lie. that they got away with and did. But I would think that now that's enabled, right? Like
Yeah.
with facial recognition, with AI, with different things, you could totally do that now. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
surprised there's not more and more stores like that. But and originally it was just they were doing it in the background and nobody knew any better, right? And
I
so
mean, that's not surprising. I mean, that's what a lot of MVPs are, you
yeah, I
know.
know, right? They are. Yeah.
They're like, this is what it would be like, but
Yeah.
it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, but
We're just
it's
gonna
like
make
we
it,
don't have to tell you how the sausage is made. Like,
yeah. We're
yeah,
gonna make
it's
it
all
look like
great.
this is what
Tell
it is.
about your experience, but you don't know. We had like 100 people back here. Like, would you
Yeah.
do this?
But I did go to I went to Bass Concert Hall the other day for a show, and I've gone a couple times this year, and they just added these new it's coolers, and then you check out yourself.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is they still have a person there because so many people get confused.
No, it's
And
just
so
on how to use it.
yes. So people get confused. And so they still have a person there. But then also, it asked for a tip. And I was like, if there wasn't a person here, who would that tip be going to?
Exactly.
But
You
there
should-
is a person there, and they basically like they show you how to put your credit card in. I mean, I guess it's also just to make sure that nobody walks off without has a water bottle in one hand and then only pays for one or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, and that line actually has gotten to the point where a lot of times it's longer than going to just a person because people are getting used to. I mean, hopefully eventually that'll be shorter, it'll be easier because people get used to using it. But right now it's like I'm like, oh no, 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 I'm not waiting for all those people to figure this out.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah. It's like that commercial. I don't know where it is. Like at a ballpark and someone's selling hot dogs and then there's a robot selling hot dogs and everybody runs over to the robot instead of like just getting it from the person. I think that's hilarious too. But yeah, there's the phenomena of the shiny object, right? And people want to
yeah,
try out the new stuff and
yeah,
yeah, no, that's cool. That's for sure. Oh, well, this has been such a cool conversation, man. This has been so
yeah.
good. We've been chatting for like over an hour, I think. It's so awesome sauce. And it's like how you and I like we became fast friends as soon as we met. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, this and that. Yeah, this is so awesome. So, well, okay. Well, let's wrap it up. And if somebody would like to get a hold of you, especially like, a mall or a retail owner that, thinks that your stuff would be cool as crap, how do they do that?
Well, LinkedIn is always good, Brett Clark. And actually I am just LinkedIn Brett Clark.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of me in a blue blazer. So there are a lot of Brett Clarks out there.
Yeah.
And then Brett at Constellation Growth Partners is another, that's our email address. We are working on our website. It's it's going to be an investor portal, so it's not going to have a ton of information for just the general viewer. But of course, investor portals take a lot more time to build than, and until we had a handful of investors, we were doing that manually, sending
I
everything to
know.
our investors.
I
But
would,
now so it's under construction. But yeah, so pretty soon we'll have constellationgrowthpartners.com. We own the domain and everything, but yeah, so yeah, LinkedIn or my email are usually the best. I'm
well,
on LinkedIn all day, every day. So
I know I'm with you there. I'm there too. That's awesome. Well, thanks for so much for coming on the show. It's awesome.
yes, thank you for having me.